The holidays don't have to wreck your health. While everybody else is going out and changing the way they eat, how much they drink, how much they exercise, having all the extra stress of everything else, you can get through, with excellent health, not being the one that's sick, not being the one that's gaining weight, not being the one that's all inflamed with brain fog and all these other things with some simple changes. I'm Dr. Jeff Cumro, and over the past 15 years, I've been blessed to work with over 5,000 patients. And through that, we've seen some awesome health transformations. And this is one of the most dangerous times of the year. We see a lot more stroke. We see a lot more heart attack. We see a lot more health challenges in general, just people being sick and missing parties, different things like that. And a lot of it comes down to the way that we eat. And there are some simple shifts that you can make to protect your health through this. And that's not just protecting you from getting sick, it's also protecting you from the weight gain, it's protecting you from the risk of heart attack and stroke, it's protecting you from all of these other things, right? So the big thing that we see as we move into these holiday seasons is we start eating a lot more sugar, a lot more carbs, a lot more fat. And this is something that's difficult to get around, right? And I just recently read a study that was talking about, the natural foods that we eat. Stereotypically, the whole foods that we have, the fruits, vegetables, meats, those things don't have both high carbohydrate and high fat. They either have high carbohydrate or high fat. But when we look at the processed foods, we get high sugar, high carbohydrate, high fat along with it. And this does one big thing to the brain. It spikes our dopamine. And that dopamine is our reward system. And when our reward system spikes, that's where we see food addiction. We see things that, we get those cravings. We want that thing more. And it just starts to drive some of those choices. And that's very dangerous this time of year because we have some of these cookies or brownies or cakes or some of these other sweets that come around at this time. And it starts to drive those behaviors, right? So we've got to get away from that. And there are ways that we can make these choices that are going to protect us. And that's ultimately what we're going to dive into. But the candies and sweets and all that stuff aren't the only challenge this time of year, right? We also have alcohol. We have more holiday parties, different things like that. Alcohol tends to flow a little bit more this time of year. And that presents some challenges. But that's not it. When we start getting to these parties, we start decreasing our sleep, right? Because we're staying up later than we should out at some of these parties. We still got a bunch of things to do, whether that be work, whether it be home, whether it be kids' activities, different things like that. So we're running around more. We're not getting as much sleep. And then all of this, the financial burden, the time burden, the family burdens, all these other things start to take a bigger toll through stress, right? So we have all of these things that break down our health. And we have to make some changes that are going to help build this up. So how can you do that? When we are looking at our diet throughout this, it's not just the sweets, it's not just the alcohol, it's looking at Thanksgiving. We're eating tons of food, and stereotypically it's starchy foods, different things like that, right? We don't always get the healthiest diets during these times. You've got the sweet potatoes, you've got the stuffing, you've got the mashed potatoes. There's all sorts of things, cakes and pies and cookies and all of this stuff. It gives us that big boost, and once we have it, we want more. The big thing about this is when we get high omega-6 consumption, and omega-6s are found in carbohydrates and grain-fed meats and some of these different things, sugars and all of that stuff, it spikes our omega-6 levels. And our omega-6 fatty acids are fatty acids that are associated with inflammation. And this presents in different ways, right? So in some people, it's going to cause a spike in arachidonic acid production, which is going to cause prostaglandin release, and it can show up as eczema, it can show up as psoriasis, different skin irritations. In other people, it's going to show up as sleep disturbance because their blood sugar is already a little off. And once we start having blood sugar dysregulation, our blood sugar may drop at night and they wake up wide awake. They're up for a couple hours. They can't fall back asleep and it throws off blood sugar. And yet other people, it's going to show up as brain fog or different things like this because as we get that inflammation, it starts creating different things. Just dysfunction, I guess, for lack of better terms. And I recently read another article here, and it was talking about how omega-3s can be very, very protective of, the aggressive behavior in children and in adults, in men and in women. It doesn't matter what population. By taking in more omega-3s, we decrease aggressive behavior. And this doesn't just apply to aggressive behavior. Where those omega-3s are situated, a lot of that goes up to the prefrontal cortex. Our prefrontal cortex is what controls executive decision making. So the decisions that we make, memory, goal planning, all of these different things are more biased right up in here. So as we start to get that boost in omega-3, we have better logic, we have better decision control, right? We have better willpower, all of these things that start to stack together. That's an important part. But what a lot of people don't know is this is the system that is tasked with knocking down the stress response. The stress response comes from the brainstem ultimately, and it drives some of those older brain areas to give us that that impulsivity, that emotionality, all that other stuff. So when you get really, really stressed out and you just can't take it anymore and you have the outburst, that's that emotional brain that is taking over, right? That's where that aggression comes in. It's that emotionality, that impulsivity that we can't hold back. And when we have better function of that prefrontal cortex, that omega-3 goes there and it gives us that better functionality. It helps to protect against some of that. So by taking more fish oil during this time of year, by eating more seafood that is rich, especially in DHA. That DHA is the part that's going to go more to the brain. The EPA, another omega-3 fatty acid, is going to go more to the body. So looking for those things, eating more seafood, fish oil, they can help to knock down some of these other things. Now, the interesting aspect of this is, like I said, the omega-6s are often found in, the carbohydrates, the starches, the sugars, all of that stuff. When we have that ratio thrown off, when we have too high of omega-6, we get inflammation. But we also have alcohol consumption, right? What does alcohol do? It decreases brain function, right? How does it do that? It basically breaks down fats, right? It breaks down that insulation that goes around the nerve. That is where that EPA and that DHA is found. It surrounds the nerve and allows for better functionality, better, more efficient communication in there, right? So as we start to get that EPA and DHA eroded a little bit, this can also lead to more of that stress outburst. So other things that start to impact this. When we have a lack of sleep, we don't have as much energy, right? This part of the brain takes a ton of energy to run. So we start seeing that area start to escape because we just don't have the energy to run everything. So all of these things start stacking together, but they lead to the same area. So by stacking that omega-3 fatty acid, the DHA, it really can help protect you through this period of time. When we look at the DHA and the EPA, the omega-3 fatty acids, in a different light, they help with heart health. They help with platelet aggregation minimization. So strokes, it helps to minimize strokes. It helps to minimize heart attacks. It helps protect the heart and keep it healthy. It protects the brain and keeps it healthy. It protects the skin and keeps it healthy. All of these things. But when we have that knockdown in stress response, we also have more energy left over at the end of the day. And my health formula is the energy that you make minus the energy that you expend is the energy you have left over to heal and repair, right? So if we have more energy left over at the end of the day, whether we're making more energy or we're expending less energy, when we have more left over at the end of the day, that gives you a better way to avoid those sicknesses, those colds, those flus, those COVID, whatever it may be that is floating around. Your body has that natural energy that it can use to approach those things, heal, repair, do the things that it needs to do to keep you safe and healthy through the holidays. Now, obviously, if you have any questions on this, fire them off. This is the stuff that I love. I love talking about this and ultimately, helping you take that next step in your health. So as always, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. I know that those are your greatest assets. I appreciate you spending some of that with me. I hope you have a very, very safe and happy holiday season. I hope you get plenty of good food, plenty of good family time, and you enjoy the time. So as always, I appreciate you, and I'll catch you on next week's video.